Most women choose to have children and fall into motherhood naturally. But in today's society, growing numbers of women are choosing to be childless, or they're strongly considering if it's the right thing for them. While motherhood might not be a walk in the park, the childless woman also faces a set of challenges. I'm here today with 4 women who are willing to share their stories. Together, our goal is to provide clarity and relief for those who want to make a conscious decision about motherhood and feel good about it. I'm Erin Donley, and this is Reveal What's Real. Ladies, I'm so glad that we're finally coming to the table to talk about this. I'm in my late 30s, and this is definitely something that haunts me in a way. And I've never been so conflicted about something, you know, like my mind says no, but my body says yes. And I also really have heard a lot from women who are mothers who say that this is the greatest love you could find, the most spiritual experience possible. And I think, how could I not want that for myself? But yet I'm not sure that I do. And so thanks for joining me, because I think each of you have really unique and enlightening stories in your own way. And there needs to be a place for these kind of conversations for more women. And so let's get started. I think I'd like for each of you to tell your story, and then we can just chime on in. So Karen, why don't you begin? Introduce yourself, please.
Sure. My name is Karen Foster, and I'm the author of No Way Baby,
Hold that up.
Exploring, Understanding, and Defending the Decision Not to Have Children.
And when I found you, I was like, yes, bring this woman on.
I have been writing about and researching the childless by choice for about 5 years. And I never, as a child, played with dolls, never fantasized about the wedding and the babies like little girls are often talked about doing. I always knew I didn't want to have children right now, even in my 20s and 30s, but I always kept open to the possibility that I might someday change my mind. Then when I got to be in my late 30s, and this speaks to what you just said, Erin, when the opportunity to change my mind was starting to go away.
Yeah.
I had to really look at it in a much deeper way. And so I started doing some research, and what I found was that there are just rows and rows and rows of books about becoming a mother, but almost no information out there about not becoming a mother, or about really what that life is like, and you know, who's doing it and all of that. So I decided to fill that void by doing the research both for myself and for the other women out there. And that's how the baby book was born.
Yeah.
Karen, you made a slip of the tongue, which I think is really kind of Freudian. We ought to point out, since I'm 76 and, you know, was part of the women's movement, that many women buy into the idea that being a woman, that is the role of a woman. So it's not only the necessities of the working life that drives us, but being a woman has to do with the ability to bear children. We know there's a great deal of depression that comes in midlife crisis when, and you're all too young for that yet, but it'll come. That
you're assuming a lot.
We look younger than we are.
I'll take that as a compliment today.
Well, then nod with me in saying that as you lose those reproductive years, that too is another choice, but one Erin that we don't make, that nature makes for us, and our sense of our sexuality is challenged. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
I think
it was a very interesting Freudian slip in becoming a woman versus becoming a mother, because really it's the pinnacle of womanhood, right? Is becoming becoming a mother, and for some women that may be true. For many, it's not. And I really just want to see women knowing the truth before they make this the most irreversible decision of their life.
Well, even, Christianity is still a very predominant religion in our country, and Christianity says that, God made women to reproduce. So if you choose not to do that, you're not only going against God, but you're going against your own nature in a way. And there's this thing too, that if you're being sexual outside of reproduction, you're kind of viewed as like the harlot, it's either like the virgin and the harlot. And so I think that that's confusing for a lot of women, and there could be a sense of shame in that. I don't know.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's coming up a lot being that we're in an election year.
Yes.
And we have some candidates out there who are actually not just opposed to abortion, but opposed to birth control. And so what does that mean for us as childless by choice? And even if you're not childless by choice, most women don't want to have unlimited number of children. So it seems to me that my personal belief is that birth control was divinely inspired right around the time that we had just enough human beings, or more than we could handle, because birth control is not covered in the Bible. And if people want to say that it is going against God, they're just making that up. I can say, you know what? God inspired it. If God's omnipotent, God inspired it. There's enough people in the world.
Michaela, let's transfer over to you. I'd love to hear what came about for you in this time of your life.
Yeah, well, I recently turned 46, and I think for me, what I would most like women to get, or actually men too, is just to really make sure they're being conscious of their decision, and taking some time over your life to periodically check in with yourself and really do an honest inquiry, like what are my motives for having children, or what are my motives for not having children? Because I kind of had an interesting realization earlier this year that was shocked me a little bit, because I have a background as a hypnotherapist and I do angel reading, so I think of myself as pretty evolved and self-aware, right? And I've worked with a lot of people integrating shadows and their inner child, and I've done a lot of work on that myself. However, same as you, Karen, my whole identity as a child was as a person who I would like to write, I would like to dance, I like to make things. My sister was the one playing with the dolls and always wanted to be a mom and have kids, and that just was not who I was. And I was very comfortable with what I thought was a decision. I thought, well, this is who I am. I am one who does not want to have kids. And even in my 20s, when it started becoming a little bit more real in the sense of dating men and needing to end some relationships where, they wanted to have children, I had the kind of intellectual idea that, okay, my father sexually molested me when I was a little kid. So there's probably a connection between not wanting to have kids and having that experience. But at that time, like in my 20s and my 30s, I felt at peace with it. I kind of felt like I looked at it in a spiritual way, like, well, this was a part of my path, and perhaps I'm supposed to be a mother in a different way, and not specifically with one or more little beings, right? Felt very comfortable with that. And then here's the thing, like earlier this year, I was working with this book by Michael Brown called The Presence Process, and it's all designed to integrate emotional charges from your childhood. And I was watching this old episode on Netflix of 6 Feet Under, and there was a man and a woman and a little baby, and I just lost it. I totally started bawling. And I was like, oh my God, what is going on? And I had this total like revelation awareness, if you will, like in that moment, that holy, but actually it was the other word. And I was like, holy Mother of God, I didn't choose to not have children. It was like literally, like I realized in that moment, like it literally was imprinted upon every cell of my body when I was a little kid. Like no way do I want to repeat any kind of that energy dynamic that resembles the family. So basically mother, father, child. So here I thought that I had made this conscious choice. And really I hadn't made a conscious choice. Now, that I spent a couple of days crying over that, I would have been a great mom, or, I'm missing out on that, beautiful spiritual relationship with my child. And I will say, though, a few days later, I came to the place of, no, you know what? I feel at peace with this. And you know what? I really think if I would have had this awareness 10 or 15 or 20 years earlier, I would have come to the same place, which is that I really don't want to have children because I am an artist and I want to write books and I want to make movies. And so I would have come to the same decision anyways, but, you know, at least now I'm in a place where I'm open to dating men who have kids, whereas before I wasn't.
So that changed.
So that's changed.
Well, it's one of the reasons that I asked you on the show is because you are one of the most alive people I know and really dedicated to spirituality, and you're clearly not having a lame experience with this because you're not a mother, you know? And so I wanted someone who is doing like some really meaningful, awesome, enriching, heart-opening work, nurturing others too.
Thank you.
And so, yeah, I think that perhaps, you know, especially with you, you found that you were being a mother in other ways.
Absolutely. There's definitely different ways to be a mother. And I mean, it's kind of ironic because actually most of the inspirational work that I do, it's like I consciously am writing from that voice of, you know, call it the divine feminine, if you will, or, you know, being in that nurturing, uplifting kind of writer's voice. So I'm already, but it is interesting how different people perceive that, you know, whether you're really a mother or not, or and how that's accepted.
Yeah.
Well, Gandhi said that he left his family, and he said, I cannot love my family and love the world at the same time. I like what you say about nurturing. I think the world is awash in testosterone, and it needs more mothering. But it doesn't necessarily mean reproducing your own gene cells. There's an awful lot, and you're nodding, and I appreciate that, because I think women have a great deal to give to this planet as mothers, but mothers in a large sense, so that no one should abandon her pride in that nurturing feeling that is genetically born into us. But we need to expand it, because I really do think the world needs more mothers.
Yeah, I agree.
Giving that.
Yeah.
Monica, let's go over to you, because you do have a desire to have children, and that just kicked in a little bit later in life. And so I feel like your story is so important to this conversation. Would you mind explaining where you're at with things?
Okay, well, all of my life I never wanted kids, and like every time I saw a little baby and people would say, oh, you know, I can't wait, I never had that pull, and I thought, you know, something was wrong with me, and, you know, kind of embarrassed about it. I never really talked about it, but I never had that desire. And then when I turned 43 is when I met my husband, and everything changed. And when I really got to thinking about it and talking about it, I realized, for me, that this might sound a little cliche, but I finally believed in love. And so I felt the lasting relationship, the conscious relationship, conscious love, and I saw in him an amazing, he'll be an amazing dad. And so I never chose a partner where both of those existed. And so anyway, everything changed when I met him at 43. Well, then the whole infertility process kicked in. So we went through a lot of that. And that was
that's putting it mildly. You've been through a lot.
Medication,
Medication, surgery. I mean, it's been really intense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. And still thinking, you know, well, I'm not having a child biologically, you know, are people going to judge me? I mean, it's been a big road of, it's been a big life lesson of not caring what others think. Hugely. So now we're at a point of opening the doors to adoption. and that feels exciting to me, because there's so many kids out there that need nurturing, that need to be in a different, healthier atmosphere. And I'm a firm believer that we sign sacred contracts with those that we either are in a family with, or certain key relationships in life. And I believe that child or those children, whether it Cooks and me or some other woman, we're still going to find each other because that contract is signed. And so to me, that gives me a lot of peace, and I love that. And
Truly. I think some of the celebrities are really helping us kind of see the beauty in that.
point.
As much as I get annoyed with People Magazine and Us Weekly, I'm like, this is all about kids and marriage and evening gowns, you know? It's like every once in a while, you know, you do see some of the Angelina Jolie or whatever who have taken in children, and it just, you can't tell the difference.
Well, and the thing is that you, any woman, I'm 44, I could wake up tomorrow and say, oops, I forgot to have kids. You can always change your mind when you don't have kids, as long as you're open to adoption. When you have kids already, there's no changing your mind. So that goes back to what you were saying about making a conscious decision, because 50% of the pregnancies in this country are unplanned. That means that
50%?
Yes, Planned Parenthood is the source on that. And if you think about that, that means that how many people are going out there and not giving this any thought? They're just finding themselves pregnant and then saying, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll go ahead and have a kid.
Yeah.
Because I was going to do that anyway. And so you'll see a lot of times people having children very young, 18, 19, 20, or much older.
Yeah.
Because if you make it into your late 20s without having kids and start looking around at some of the realities, it tends to be put off a little bit longer, sometimes too long, but it's okay, because I agree with you. I have a lot of adoption in my family, and it's the soul bond that matters.
Totally.
Well,
The bio bodysuit is somewhat irrelevant in my family, so
I think
I admire that.
I'm glad that we're bringing that up, because, you know, for me, it's not so much the idea of having children. I don't really want to be pregnant.
Oh,
You know? I
I was scared of it all along. That's always been my fear. And I have to confess, when we got to this point, I felt relief that I didn't have to, because I used to really feel creeped out at someone growing in my body. And then I got more and more okay with it as we went through all the shots and all the appointments and ultrasounds and everything. And I know I would be okay. I know I would do a good job. But there has been a sense of relief, you know, of not going through that. But I don't feel like I would miss out.
It's funny. I'm wondering about you. Any curiosity? I have no curiosity about pregnancy and childbirth.
Or labor.
Labor. Exactly.
Well, but the nice thing is that Monica now has a real choice too of motherhood, and it's coming in a time of her life where she knows herself well enough that she will either be ready for it or she won't be ready for it. And that's really kind of a gift, you know. But everyone wonders about the road not taken. Now, in my day, women just did get married, and women just did have children, or they were old maids and ostracized, and people didn't know what to do with you at dinner parties.
But did you know at a young age that you did not want to have children?
Oh, I would love to say that I was thoughtful, like you suggest, but I wasn't. I just drifted. I went around the world. I spent 4 years overseas and had a wonderful life. And when I got back, all the good men were taken. And so I did not make a conscious decision. I mean, I presumed I would follow in these paths. But when I got to 29, which in my day was
Isn't that crazy?
And I looked around, and there were a couple of fellows, and my mother kept saying, "Oh, honey, he's got beautiful teeth." And I thought, "Oh, wonderful. You go to bed with him." But then was my moment of truth, my moment of courage. I said, "No, this is not good enough for me. I've had a freewheeling life for 29 years, and it's not the beginning. I want more." Now, people will say, well, yes, now you've lived a perfectly selfish life. And that was often a charge that was raised with. And my response is, what could be more selfish than reproducing yourself for future generations? Falling in love with your genes all over again. You know, I mean, no disrespect. I
No,
do.
there's plenty of selfishness to go around.
Of
We're all
course.
pursuing the path that
Of
we think
course.
is going to make us happy, whether it's having children
Exactly
or not.
so.
That's a self-interest.
Carolyn, first of all, when you and I first met, that's when I knew I wanted to have this conversation on the show, because I just loved your strength in all of this. But I also think that there is a myth that some women, or sort of like a disbelief that they think like, well, I want children because I need someone to care for me when I'm older, or I want grandchildren one
is
day.
also
That's
selfish.
why, truly.
Yes.
And so, have you noticed that some women your age did not have their children's support, or did not have the involvement that they always wished, and kind of felt duped by that? Did you notice that happening?
Well, as I said to you, Monica, it's always the road not taken. You invest here. Now, in my case, it's a stock portfolio. That's going to take care of me. But for other women, it's their families. Now, I have to admit that families can be more loving and caring than a dollar bill. But I have also seen in my sad days plenty of families that were so dysfunctional that you wouldn't want them to take care of you. Having children is no guarantee that your love will be returned.
Yes.
No, or that your children will be in a position to take care of
There
you.
you go.
Because your sons and daughters are both going to be working and raising children of their own. So if you're talking about hands-on care, not just advocacy, but hands-on care, children are not taking care of their parents now. So having children, to have someone to take care of you when you get old is one of the most foolish reasons I can think of
it sure is.
to have children. Because if you look at who's taking care of the elderly now, it's not their children.
Yeah, that's outdated thinking.
It's really outdated thinking. And so you still have to have the stock portfolio, whether you have the kids or not.
Ladies, if you're listening out there, a stock portfolio is nirvana and peace of mind.
Good advice.
Good
Now,
advice.
there's something I really wanted to make sure we talked about, is that a lot of us, this decision not to have children places a little bit of discomfort with our relationship with our mothers. And I've had several friends say to me, well, my sister had twins, but I just, published a book and started a company, but my mother didn't even mention that in the Christmas newsletter. It's all about the grandchildren, and I just think for a lot of mothers, this is so foreign to them, and they sometimes don't know how to relate to us. And you spoke a little bit of, I think all of us have had maybe
Yeah, well, I think if you look at the reality of it nowadays, a lot of people our brothers and sisters and what have you, are going through their own divorces. So my sister is an amazing mother, and she's got 3 beautiful kids, and my mom moved to where she lives to, help her take care of the children.
Is she divorced?
She's in the process of getting a divorce. So it's like, and which there's a part of me that totally 100% understands and supports my mother, 100% supporting my sister. And yet there's another part of me that's like, oh, I have a book coming out in a week. And it's like, it's like, oh, what? Oh, can you hand that to go give to so-and-so? You know what I mean? It's just like there doesn't seem to be, the fact is that when you have children, it seems to me that all the energy has to go there. So those of us who don't have children, those of us who are birthing our projects in a different way, it's kind of like, you get to the bottom of the totem pole. And I think it's just something that you have to accept. I'm not going to fight it. There's no sense in fighting it. It doesn't work. It just
you're sleeping on the couch at Thanksgiving, and it's just the way it is.
If there's some mashed potatoes left over, we'll give you a couple dollars.
There is a. I don't want to get too deep into it, but since you gals are all sort of into the inner spirit and the inner core, these things that we're talking about are so biologically ingrained in us. This is what nature wants for us, because she doesn't care about you or me, but she does care about the species. So we must forgive ourselves for these impulses. But then we have an opportunity now in today's world is to really think about, what is it to be human? Is it simply to reproduce? Or do we have a larger responsibility to the planet and perhaps to to the galaxy, certainly to the human race.
Karen, you said that your book really addresses a lot of that, a lot of statistics about the impact that each child has on the earth.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. In fact, an American child consumes 5 times more than the rest of the world combined. So when you don't have an American child, you're actually doing a greater service for the planet than when you don't have, say, an Afghani child, for example. But that's not really the reason to have or not have. There's ways to, I think, raise children in an environmentally conscious way as well. And that's part of, I think, this whole discussion. But we do have landfills that are full of human feces, then that's against the law to have human feces in landfills, but there they are wrapped in plastic diapers and all kinds of stuff like that. So there's a lot of misinformation, and what I like about what I'm hearing here is all the thoughtfulness. The people that I interviewed for my book, they very much were clear that they were missing out on something for something else. And they had those feelings every once in a while, like, oh, maybe I was supposed to have a child because that one's so cute and I feel so warm and fuzzy now. And then they realized, no, I always go back to that center. And so realizing that, you know, I miss someone grabbing my finger for the first time, or the kids running down the stairs Christmas morning or something, understanding that I'm missing that and still making that choice, or you still making that choice, I think is really a responsible, mature thing to do. But real quick, if I can just finish, some of the misnomers about if people have a bad childhood, they don't want to have kids. Of course, that's not true universally.
No, not at all.
Right? Or if you just meet the right man, you'll change your mind. Okay, that kind of happened for you, and that's real. But the idea that we're all just choosing this until the right man comes along is another misnomer. We've ended relationships over it. So there's a lot of misunderstanding about who we are, and my whole life purpose is to be of service to the world, just not to children.
Well, to underscore what you're saying in a cliche is, we are more than our biology. That's the bottom line for the emancipated woman to think about. We are more than our biology. And as you say, what is our responsibility to the planet?
Thank you. I love that we're wrapping up the conversation on that note. And I'd also urge women who are mothers to look at all of us a little bit differently, and perhaps like or comment on our Facebook posts every once in a while, and remember that we need their support as much as they need ours.
It
and
does
let's
take a
come
village
together with that. Real briefly, you know, we have 3 authors at this table. Karen's book, No Way Baby.
No Way Baby, Exploring, Understanding, and Defending this Decision Not to Have Children, is available at Amazon.com and other distributors.
Thank you. And Michaela?
The Little Book of Light, 111 Ways to Bring Light into Your Life. I don't know if you can tell, but it's padded hardcover, and it's being released by Redwell Weiser September 1st.
Beautiful. Wonderful. Caroline, real quick.
Gothic Spring, a real Gothic novel, but it's about women's issues and the right of women to the right of women to be themselves, and a new one coming out, Trump Loy, in October.
Fabulous.
Wonderful.
Great. And Monica, I know in your work as an energetic healing practitioner, lots of women come to you wanting to talk about what's going on and what they can do differently.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so you're available for that, I'm sure.
Yes, yeah, definitely. It's a great gift to be able to help others like that.
Come back next month, because we're going to turn the tables and talk to men about erectile dysfunction. So that should be a juicy one.
Yes.
Thank you, ladies, so much. This has been great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Real fun.
Thanks very much.